welcome back to Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching. This is Erin. So I just got back from California visiting one of my very best friends, if not like my best friend ever. She's just, I don't know, we're just so connected on a spiritual level, energetic level. Like we share so many experiences, and I just adore her. And I went out for her birthday just to celebrate her, and she'd also been to Florida a couple times, so I kind of like owed her a trip. And I live with her and her partner and her son, who is 4 years old, and it was quite the learning experience. And that is the topic of my podcast today, which is lessons from a 4-year-old. So I don't think I've ever lived with a 4-year-old that long. I have visited cousins that had, like youngins, and, I got to play with them for like a night. I have been around my niece, and when I was living with them, it was like, she was like 6 or 7, so a little bit older. What I found about 4-year-olds is that they're completely unreasonable. My friends are very conscious parents, like as far as consciously parenting, and they have conversations and try to help their child emotionally regulate themselves and invite them to have conversations. Now, walking into this and then just seeing a little child get completely just like, I don't like you, I don't like what's going on, like I guess 4-year-olds do. And watching my friend adopt a tone that was like a little bit kind of flat and just say, okay, well, what would you like to do? You asked me for the avocado toast and then you said you don't want it. So what I did was I put the toast away, but now you're saying that you want it. And it's, it took so much patience from her. And I was just sitting there admiring her, but also like, getting a little pissed off at the kid, because I guess it was triggering for me because I know how I was raised, and if I did that, I would get, smacked upside my head. Now, parenting has evolved for a lot of people, and that's not really the way you do things, because what does that do as far as accomplishing? Well, 4-year-olds, when you have that big of a response, they will just focus on that response and they forget everything that they had to do with why you responded that way, if that makes sense. So for example, my friend Jared, hi Jared, was saying that, if he yelled at his child, which like, honestly, who wouldn't want to, that his child would then forget everything that he did, meaning like the child himself, as far as like, maybe just being super difficult or, saying mean things. And then all the focus would be like, why did you hit me? Oh my God. So I was having trouble understanding all this because I was just, I see this little human and the people that I love, which I love him too, but like I haven't spent as much earthly time with him. And then when you see like one person treating another person badly, which that's just what 4-year-olds do, you just feel kind of, I don't know, like defensive towards your friends. At least that's how I felt. So a lot of times I had to kind of step out of the room and go upstairs because it was just like a bit much for me. But I didn't like understand it at first. And then I would ask questions because I was like, I'm fascinated by this because I study behavior, right? And I'm fascinated by this. I don't really understand. Can you explain to me why you don't, send him to his room or like, tell him to like go in the corner or something? And they explained to me, well, we've tried that. It didn't work. And, or it worked minimally. And so when I started understanding the reasons why, that they were keeping this like saintly amount of patience, I just want to say, like, I hope that this podcast comes off that I am complimenting them and their patience and their perseverance, because I am in absolute awe and admiration, because it's like you're tired, like you're worn out, like you've like you're essentially a servant to this little human that's completely ungrateful. And he's not like a brat. He's just like, he's a 4-year-old. Like, so he's super sweet and he has like a lot of intelligence, and I watch them play, but like, he is figuring out how to regulate his emotions. And that's what my friend explained, like, this is what we're showing him how to do. Now, the part that might apply a little bit to this podcast, a lot of us didn't get that when we were young. I certainly didn't. You got a smack upside the head. You were like, and then like you're supposed to carry on, but just not do that behavior again, like you were taught, right? That's, I showed you. Were you really though? So seeing this, my friend and her partner, my friend Jared, kind of like use teamwork to get him to describe, okay, well, why did you do that? And I would see him after they had this conflict and they got through it, I would see him come up and apologize. And he would explain the reasons, like why he did what he did. And he would say he was sorry and that it was like that his body, he knew that it was wrong, but like his body couldn't help it. And I thought to myself, I'm like, wow, we all have a little bit of that 4-year-old in us, don't we? So all this was happening, and Matt and I were calling each other because he was back in Bradenton. And sometimes when Matt talks, he uses very, very big words. And I went to university, like I have a degree, but sometimes when Matt talks, I don't understand the words he's saying. And so I'll say, hey, what does that mean? And so then he used another big word to describe what that meant. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? And then he turned that same word into a verb. And I was like, okay. Then I started like feeling, I just had this like kind of like anger and I guess insecurity come up, because when you ask someone to explain something and they explain it three different times and you still don't get it, I don't know about you, but I start to feel a little stupid. And so I said that, I'm feeling really stupid. And it was like, he wasn't trying to do that, but I had this sort of irrational, like anger mixed with shame come up. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go. Bye. And I hung up. And so I thought about it afterwards. And I thought about what my friends, wish they were my parents in a weird way, what my friends were doing to parent their child, as far as getting him to talk about why he felt that way and apologize. And I sat with that. And here I am, 38. And I thought about that and I was like, wow, that is powerful. That is the way to handle these situations. And so being inspired by this 4-year-old, right? And again, he has the emotional intelligence of more adults, or maybe like more than adults. I called Matt back and I said, I'm sorry. And, I felt stupid after having to ask you like 3 or 4 times, like, what does that mean? So I came to the conclusion that we all have a 4-year-old inside of us, right? We all have this sort of like, little part of us that wants to throw a tantrum. We have this part of us that's a little irrational. We have big emotions come up. And if we don't have the tools to regulate ourselves, then we might have an outburst. Then we might hang up the phone. Then we might storm out of the room. Then we might blame somebody, right? And like, as I thought about it more, I was like, man, like I know his little brain's still developing, right? But it's like, if I'm in a conflict with someone and then, they take it to a whole nother level, like they freak out and start yelling, then what do? I would want to play the victim, right? Because they're the persecutor now. And now we're in the drama triangle. If you're not familiar with that work, the drama triangle is the persecutor, the victim, and the savior. The antidote for the drama triangle is the coach, which takes the place of the rescuer, the challenger, which takes the place of the persecutor, like challenging the situation, not the person. And the victim becomes the creator. Like, what can I create from this situation? Like, what was my role here? Like, how can I step into my power? So I have to say that even though there were times when it was hard, and again, visiting my friend and seeing like Mfon and Jared was amazing. Like they're fantastic people. I wish they lived closer. So much fun. But like watching them go through that was uncomfortable at times, but like such a huge lesson for me. And, I can see the lacking that I had growing up. Just it wasn't available. Like my parents, like they didn't really know how, and that's okay. Like I love both of them. I forgive them. But like seeing that kind of parenting in action and then like asking questions and understanding it and then being able to apply it to myself as an adult, it was really humbling and enlightening, and has, inspired me to like study that behavior a little bit more, right? It's like when we have those times where we want to have an outburst, like, okay, pause, regulate, come back. Pause, regulate, come back. And also that it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to be perfectly calm and serene in any situation. It's unreasonable and it's not human. In my last podcast, I talked about how I had to emotionally regulate myself using neurovascular holds, which I demonstrated in the video, but also in there's my hand. I was trying to demonstrate all of them. I am a little jet lagged, so if I sound a little like dopey in this podcast, just know that I wanted to show up for you. I wanted to record this. And I hope that you get something out of this. And also if you're a parent listening to this, like, thank you for your service. Like, it is like just being with them for that week. There were times where I was like, oh, like I had to just like go for a walk and get out of the house and like they are in the belly of the beast. So if you're a parent listening to this and you're doing that good work, thank you. Thank you for helping the next generation be able to regulate themselves so they don't have to go through everything that a lot of the people that I work with go through to be able to learn how to regulate ourselves. We've turned it into a spiritual journey, which is what I've certainly done, like learning how to regulate myself, learning how to teach that to others, certifying people in how to help others to do that once they've learned how to do it for themselves. So we're all here together to heal. We're a community. And if you're listening to this podcast, thank you so much for being a part of my extended community. I appreciate you. And yeah. So I hope that this podcast hits you in the right way. I'm trying to do shorter podcasts so I can do them more often. So I hope that you enjoy this little snip. Again, this is lessons learned from a 4-year-old. Namaste.
Thank you so much for listening. If you want to support the podcast and if it's helping you, please consider writing a review. You can go to iTunes or Google Play, go into the search bar and type in Thrive Yoga Fit Transformational Coaching, scroll down, and you can leave a review. This helps other people to find me as well as bumps us up in the search ratings. Also, this podcast is sponsor-free, so that means we don't receive anything for doing it. If you feel so inclined and this podcast is helping to support you and you want to return the favor and help to support any production costs of the podcast, feel free to give a donation to a Venmo link, Thrive Yoga Fit, or PayPal, Erin@erincoach.com. If you don't have the means, don't worry about it. We're not going anywhere. You're all good. But if you would like to give back, you can give back in those ways. Last thing, we have a coaching certification coming up. And it's 7 days of an intensive work, followed by a 3-month mentorship. You will not find another teacher that's more passionate and dedicated than I am to my students and their learning. And not just their learning, but the application and how they show up in their life. If you've been listening to this podcast and it's had a huge impact on your life, just imagine what it would be like to spend 7 intensive days with me and then a 3-month mentorship. You can check that out at thriveyogafit.com/coach-certification. Again, thriveyogafit.com/coach-certification. Thank you so much. Namaste.